and welcome to Witness, where we bring you the best documentaries from around the world, stories told from a personal perspective. I'm Rida Fakhri. Russia has waged a brutal war against Chechen separatists since the 1990s. But what started as a nationalist independence movement soon became a rallying cry for Islamist militants around the world who wanted to establish an Islamic state in the North Caucasus. The separatists defeated the Russian army, but 4 years later the Russians came back with a vengeance. At the same time, some former rebels like the Republic's current president, Ramzan Kadyrov, changed sides in opposition to the militant Islam of some of the separatists. Russia now claims to have finally defeated the rebels, but resistance continues, and many who survived the battles and fled to exile outside Chechnya still live in fear of their lives. They are Chechen fighters.
This is my homeland, Chechnya. Most of the world has forgotten, but the war is still being fought there. I live in the UK now, but I used to be a fighter in the Chechen resistance against Russia. I can't tell you my name. I can't show you my face or my wounds. I can't even let you hear my voice, because I still have relatives in Chechnya, and I'm afraid of what the Russians might do to them if I reveal my identity. Spring is starting now in Britain, as it is in Chechnya. It reminds me of my country, the area where I grew up. Chechnya was a beautiful country, with so many hopes for the future. But they were destroyed, smashed. Images like these have been shot by Chechen fighters, people I know or knew. It's their way of getting around the Russian restriction on reporting from Chechnya and letting the world know that the war isn't over yet. We have fought against Russian occupation for centuries. We even had our own Holocaust. Stalin deported the entire population east during the Second World War. A third of all Chechens died in the process. My parents were born in Kazakhstan, and so many of the population died during that deportation. They were forced out of their homes without even proper clothing. And 50 years later it happened again. It's been happening all the time since we started to live with the Russians. So when the Soviet Union broke up in 1991, Chechnya was quick to declare its independence. And when Russia invaded 3 years later, I was one of the first to join Chechen army. It was my duty, to be honest, and I can't imagine my destiny without having been a part of that. When I was growing up as a boy of 10, 15, the heroes in books I was trying to make my role models were all fighters against the Russian invasion. But the amazing thing is that after 2 years we won that war. We beat the biggest army in Europe. For 3 years we had a kind of independence. And then Russia invaded again. This time bigger, harder. I was wounded at the beginning of the Second War in an ambush. We were driving and suddenly people started shooting. I tried to escape the car I was in and start shooting back. I was hit straight away. My head, legs, body. We were just going to check the way to see if it was safe for others to travel. It wasn't. Up to 200,000 people have been killed in the two wars. That's a fifth of our population. Russia now controls most of Chechnya, and Mr. Putin has declared mission accomplished. But he still keeps troops in this small country, because the resistance fights on from its mountain strongholds. I'm on my way to meet another fighter. Because the Chechen community here is so small, he would be easy to identify, so I shall call him Cengiz. Like me, he has to hide his face and his voice. I met Cengiz during the First War. Salam alaikum.
Alaikum salam. I was studying in Russia before the First War broke out. And when the war started, I left my studies and returned home. I always had good knowledge of our history from my father's stories. How our men would take up arms to defend the country against Russians. I was wounded at the beginning of the Second War and was taken out of Chechnya. I've been getting news from the Chechen resistance through tapes and messages.
Cengiz fought with one group in the resistance. I fought in another. These are messages sent to me.
This awesome, this بلا ستارنا شابه شد عخوان.
لا شابه شد.
نو بلا دعسة خلاص شيء بيسوي. ما تعاون ديت هو مفروض. يا تعرف. بيت تقرب شو فنارك كذا.
طبعا ما بيوش معك. سكر بقي غاز خليرة فنارك.
How life changes people. Izrudin, the guy on the left, he was so young, such a naughty boy. I always used to tell him off for speeding around in his car, for arguing, just behaving like a kid. And here, he's a grown man, talking like a grown man, ready to die for something. Quite amazing destinies people have. I sent them 10 watches in the end. Just before Izrudin was killed, he was captured. They put out his eyes, cut his nose and ears, broke every bone in his body. They wanted him to betray the resistance. When his village got his corpse, people said it was the most mutilated body they've seen from both wars. After I was wounded, my brothers, I had 5 of them, started to join the rebels. One was killed without even participating in anything. He was taken away from his home. And we never heard about him again. That caused my other brothers, one after another, to join the resistance. And they were killed after that. When the third one died, I took away from that town the 2 youngest brothers just because I knew their attitude to what's going on would be the same, if not stronger. One of them decided to go back, and I couldn't stop him. He went back to Chechnya and he died. With my youngest brother, I managed to get him married. He was in love with a beautiful lady. And as soon as I found out, I decided that would be the way to keep him away from the war. I collected some money, and my friends helped me, and we arranged a kind of wedding ceremony. And now he lives with his wife and kid. He's got a son who was named after his older brother. Like my 4 dead brothers, young people go to the mountains and join the resistance whenever the commanders need them. That's Aslan Mashadov. Cengiz served under him. He was elected president of Chechnya in 1997. Mashadov said to continue this war, to be effective against Russia, all he needed was 1,500, 2,000 people. No more. The more you've got, the more visible you become. The people in balaclavas are hiding their faces because they have to go to towns to see their relatives, to bring back information. Mashadov was our most moderate leader, the one the Russians could negotiate with, but they didn't want to negotiate and killed him in 2005. Many of them died. I have so many memories of these people, who they were before the war and how they ended up.
That's Muhammad Amin. He was a farmer. 12 members of his family have been killed. And that's Ahmad Abdurhanov. He was my commander. Ahmad was just a farmer too, just a normal civilian. He wasn't a professional soldier, but he became a brigadier general. Ranks and positions don't play a great role in the resistance. Here you see a leader preparing food for his soldiers. Ahmad was an ordinary man who would never offend anyone. He always tried to be friendly. Everybody loved him. Even those who fought him didn't say anything insulting about him. He was a truly heroic man, respected by his enemies.
Before the war, for most people, religion was only important during weddings and funerals. But the Russians forced us into a corner, and now the fighters have turned to Islam as something to keep them going. We are not extremists, but we all pray now.
Join me again after the break here on Witness. Welcome back to Witness. I'm Rida Fakhri. Chechnya has made little news in recent years, but fighting is still going on in this remote mountainous region of the Caucasus, and the rebels are still prepared to die for their beliefs. In a moment, my colleague Rageh Omar will be talking to Tony Wood, who's written extensively on the subject of Chechnya. But first, let's return to the inside story of the Chechen fighters.
You know what he said once? I doubt if there's anyone in Chechnya who's more scared of the war than me. Only these two are still fighting. This one died. This one died also, and this one. This one was captured, and I don't know about him.
The deaths of so many of our friends mean that we no longer get the personal videos we used to. The war continues, but the videos we are watching now are 2, 3, 4 years old. These days we have to get most of our news by phone.
There's Ahmad on the phone to me. After I left Chechnya, I was often asked to phone another group and then tell Ahmad about their situation. I talked to him 2 or 3 hours before he died.
Old friends die, and new ones are made. This is Mansour. I heard about him in Chechnya, but we only met in the UK. He was also a fighter, and he's the best cook amongst us.
Before the First War, I was a merchant. The Russians bombed civilians from the air, from tanks and artillery. I was captured and was brought somewhere and placed in a pit. It wasn't big enough to sit. You end up in some sort of bent position. They would take me out when they wanted to torture me. Wires are connected to different parts of your body, your genitals and tongue. While running electricity through your body, they would stand there laughing, watching you in pain. You just want to die. The beatings almost never stop, and they always put a plastic bag over your head. When you lose consciousness due to lack of oxygen, they resuscitate you so that you can feel the pain. It has affected me deeply. When I go to bed, it's normal for me to wake up 3 or 4 times a night because of nightmares. It happened about 3.5 years ago. But for me, it happened yesterday.
Their tactics leave us with no choice. We are fighting for our survival. The world has shut its eyes to us, stating that Chechnya is an internal matter for Russia.
сентября недалеко от базы муджахидов была обнаружена группа разведки муджахиды. Заняли позиции и сразу начали шквальный огонь. Окружение.
How does it feel being in a situation like that? Not good. Initially you feel frightened a bit. It seems like every shot is pointed at you. You won't find a place to hide. Then, after 10